Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Onying, live here on the Tony Onying Show, proudly brought to you by the Pineton Consults, creating opportunities beyond boundaries. So with me today in the studio, we'll be discussing a concept of community psychology, as shall be presented to you by two beautiful ladies with me today. So I'll just give them a few seconds to introduce themselves, starting with one on my right and then eventually my other counterpart. So,
thank you, Tony, for this opportunity. I'm Ninsiima, a student of Makerere, doing a bachelor's degree in community psychology.
All right. Thank you so much, Anitah, Ameria, Ninsiima. For those watching from the Western world, in Africa, we always give names related to something. And of course, talking about Ninsiima, there is something to do with a benediction, a blessing, a thank you to the Lord. So, of course, we are grateful always for God giving us a new day. Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Tony, for the opportunity. Good day, dear viewers. My name is Natuhwera, Gloria, a student at Makerere University doing bachelor's degree in community psychology.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll just take the other names, Gloria and Amelia, or those who may want to remember that, Anitah, not so?
Anitah, yes.
Thank you very much. So as we discussed, we raised earlier on, we are looking at the context of community psychology. Gloria and Anitah are all students of community psychology here in Uganda. So starting us off is Anitah. What exactly is community psychology?
Community psychology. Community psychology is basically the study of human behavior and how they relate to their environment.
Human behavior and relationship to the environment. Gloria, what exactly is the environment in this context?
The environment and psychology, these are the people we live with, the things, the places where basically we be as humans.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, my comrades here. Now, again, bringing us to the context of the psychological factor, study of behavior.
Yes.
I used to look at psychology as a question of the mind. I remember back in college, we looked at context of the cognitive, the human brain, and the interaction with the surrounding. Is that psychology?
Yes, it's also psychology.
So we have different branches of psychology.
Yes.
And what you're looking up to is community. Other than community, what else, Gloria, should we think about in the psychology world?
Other than community, we can look at workplaces, we can look at schools, we can look, like the community basically covers it all.
It covers it all. So the clinical aspect all lands into
the clinical
community.
aspect also lands into community.
Then when we're talking about the whole context of the psychology thing, I remember in our previous show, Gloria, you took us through that moment. We talked about some critical aspects, stress, trauma, depression, and all those other elements. Why are they key in psychology? Anitah, maybe you can.
Okay, so the trauma, the depression, they are so key in the way that they affect how you behave as a human being. A person who is undergoing depression will behave in a specific way. They will even react to other people in a specific way. That's where we bring in the behavior aspect, because what we do, what we say, and the environment around us, it's affected by our environment and our thinking and what we go through.
So again, we're looking at the behavior. I remember moments when we go to the hospital, there are cases where you are recommended to see a psychologist. Now, this is medical. This is somebody's health. At what point, Gloria, would the doctor advise a patient to see a psychologist?
For the doctor to advise a patient or a client to see a psychologist, you see, for the psychologists, for them, the doctor may treat you, give you medicine, but not know what exactly you're suffering from or what exactly is triggering that disease or that suffering. So for the psychologist can study your minds from the discussion that you may be having or you may have with him or her. So he or she may study and know basically what triggers that disease that you're having or that doctor got.
So what is interesting here is that the doctor is giving the medication, but they may not dig deep into the environmental trigger.
True.
So it could be your wife and the doctor is giving you, tablets.
Yeah, that's true.
That's interesting. Because I'm imagining you're giving me tablets, and yet I know very well I came to the hospital because my wife stresses me every time I'm home. I have a headache, so you're giving me. At one point, a friend of mine told me there should be some of these medicines named after the trigger factors. So I don't want to get into that aspect because I'm surrounded by very important people.
It's all right.
in this case. Okay. So what are some of the in the psychology perspective? Are there specific medicines that could also be recommended by the psychologist?
Yes, we have antidepressants and stimulants, which can be recommended.
So these tablets are recommended. I last time found some tough time with Gloria here. We're looking at these medicines, and the issue is I am struggling because my animals were all killed. My chicken killed. And now you're giving me antidepressants, is it?
Yes, please.
What will it do to me?
You see, when you lose like your animals, there is that connection you have with
the animals,
with your pets,
yes.
The love you feel for them, which makes you get depressed.
Okay.
So the antidepressants, they react with your hormones, your body hormones.
And makes me forget that the animals died.
You don't forget that the animals died. But they bring that excitement. They bring up those other hormones which were affected by the death of the animals, the stress you went through losing those animals. So that's why we recommend antidepressants or stimulants. Okay. If you are high, we give you something to pull you down, pull your hormones down. If you are low, we give you something to excite you.
Let me ask something.
Yes, please.
I'm trying to look at it like the layman out there. I'm taking medicines. You see, sometimes when you're in the hospital, you get an injection into your veins. Yes. So that there is a reaction to trigger a certain outcome. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, Anita, you're telling us about these tabs. I'm trying to imagine. They are tablets, I guess, capsules?
Yeah, they are tablets.
The tablets. Imagine I take them. So in psychology, do you study things to do with the nerves, the way the brain works, the way the different parts of the body react? You know, for example, you talked about the hormones, that you take these things so that maybe they will tap onto that, the hormonal aspect, the hormone which trigger that. That's a bit biological.
Yeah.
So do you have a bit of a biological angle that you study in the psychology? Because now the psychology we're looking at here is more of the art and not the medical part of it. So how do you fit into that?
In psychology, as we talked about before, it has so many branches.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you will find sometimes you are referred to go to a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. That's why there is a difference between a neuropsychologist and a clinical psychologist.
And there we can also have a counselor.
Yes, then the counselor comes in. As a psychologist, the most advisable way of treating someone in the hospital, we get a full team, a team which has a medical doctor, and which has a psychologist, which has a counselor, which has a social worker, and all those are important in the recovery of that person. Yes.
I think I recall a moment a friend of mine was operated, but the story that the friend gave me was that prior to the operation, the surgeon surrounded him with different individuals, and when these people came through, introduced themselves, asked them some questions which seemed to be more of behavioral, and at the end of the day, when the operation began, he felt satisfied, he felt happy, he had no fear in that scenario. So I think that is the angle whereby the different parts of psychology work together, depending on the situation at hand.
Yeah.
Well. I think that makes a very, very much big sense. But maybe, Gloria, again to your side. Anitah raises a very critical issue here, and she says we have different branches of psychology, the clinical and all those aspects. So when you were doing community psychology in your very first year, were you introduced to all these branches of psychology that right now, as you're seated here, you actually have a clue that when I am counseling, I can recommend that this thing requires this kind of a psychologist? Are you able to comfortably do that?
Yeah, because when we reported or when we started doing this course, they introduced to us, they told us, as for starters, you can start from a counselor, then you go to a psychologist or psychiatrist, then from there you can still be, you can still go ahead and you upper grade, maybe you do the clinical psychologist.
Okay.
So once you upper grade to do clinical psychologist, these are the people you find they are being where the being given the clients that work as psychiatrists in the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you guys have been involved probably into some community or counseling events and all those kind of things. Where do you see yourself, Anitah, from now and 3 years down the road, especially looking at the community, looking at you probably live in homes where you're facing some of this situation, relatives, friends, and all those kind of things. Where do you see yourself 3-5 years down the road in the field of psychology?
In the field of psychology, as you know, right now we are doing a bachelor's degree in community psychology.
Yes.
And as psychologists, there is a level you don't participate in with a bachelor's. You will need...
Which is that?
Now, you can't be called a psychologist when you have a bachelor's. You have to upgrade, do your master's. You can't practice as a psychologist on a bachelor's level. This is risky, whereby you can't put a bachelor's degree student, not that they don't know, but there is more needed to sharpen up this person to be able to deal with people's behavior, deal with people's mental health. You can't just put someone out there that fast. So me as an individual, in 5 years to come, I see myself with my master's degree so that I can start practicing on the basic of not just as a community psychologist, but I want to upgrade and become a clinical psychologist.
To become a clinical psychologist.
Yes.
Okay, Gloria, you seem very passionate. This is not the first time you're talking about concepts of psychology in this show.
Yeah.
Now, just like raised the same with Anitah, where do you see yourself? Considering your passion, the last time you told us you have a background in education and now you're into the psychology point of it, what's your passion and where do you see yourself in the next 5 years actually?
Actually, I really see myself to be a very, very important person, a very important lady, due to the fact that I have a background in education as a teacher by profession. I see myself going into upgrading so that I can go further. I add on the studies that I already have. I actually see myself lecturing.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. So we are having a clinical psychologist here and we are having a lecturer of psychology someday. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it feels like doing that course. Today, when we go into the hospitals, as we discussed in a couple of the other shows right here, we definitely realize that all these courses that we do have a thing to do with the community. Whether we're in engineering, whether into medical, whether into lawyering, there is an aspect, there is an intertwining aspect there. We need a point, a piece of psychology in all that we do. And of course, we'll continue bringing you more of these shows as we move on. But I'll just ask Anitah to give us maybe one last remark to the team watching you.
I want to thank everyone who is viewing this show. And please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that we keep bringing for you great things. And you should know, psychology, it's known that it works only in hospitals. As a community psychologist, you work with engineers, you work in big companies, not only in organizations, you work in schools. So basically, you shouldn't think that the course you are doing doesn't need a psychologist, doesn't need a counselor. The point is, wherever you are working, whatever you are doing, everything is done in a way like a team where if you have an engineer, you have a psychologist working as a human resource, can be like an advisor, as a consultant. You need each other. So in this world, as we study, let's work hand in hand to make our environment better for all human beings.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anita and Gloria. Any keywords for our audience today?
Thank you so much, Tony. I first of all thank you for this opportunity to be in Pineton Studio. What I advise our dear viewers watching us out there, I just want to let you know that you can make it at any point, at any situation that you may be in, or everything that you may be going through. Just focus. You will make it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all that we had for you today. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining me in this wonderful show. It always means a lot to Pineton. It means a lot to our viewers, and of course, for always giving us a piece of what you have. So, guys out there, don't forget to subscribe. This is the Tony Onying Show, and proudly brought to you by the Pineton Consults.